The door is open for a lot of young talent. What advice would you give?
Communities want jobs, young people want hope. We've got the firepower to invest in big infrastructure.
Run for the hills. They did not. They ran for the gangway.
There's been a port here since 1293.
Okay, let's put you back in the hot seat.
But this is actually the biggest regeneration in the port's history.
One of the positives was the fact that you are proactive in all of this.
A real opportunity for the green reindustrialisation of Scotland.
Important for everybody. Kept jobs going and you kept everything moving.
Ports are a key to that.
There's lots of problems to solve.
These turbines are massive.
Let's go global. Let's stand back and see.
It was the tourism sector hardest hit.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the word authenticity.
The buzzing metropolis of Edinburgh and the romantic castles.
It was lunch and it was good.
Please tell me that the deep fried Mars bar's in on that.
Change doesn't come with one event, it's a process.
This will be my big leap.
It's not just survived, it's thrived. We're gonna bring back the kill. You remember how that thing made you feel?
It's a real industry and you can feel, you can see it. It's real.
You obviously really love this destination. You love your industry. And here we are today. We're at Forth Ports in Edinburgh at the port of Leith, the home of capital cruising. And it's beautiful sunshine. We have a fabulous view. There's a nip in the air, but not in the glass. Not yet, Rob. And I'm joined here today by Rob Mason, Senior Business Development and Strategy Manager at Forth Ports and the Chair of Cruise Scotland. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Liz. How are you doing?
Very good. I've got quite a number of questions ahead of you today, sir. So I'm going to kick off with no further ado and say, well, can you share your journey into the port industry and what inspired you to choose this career path?
I'm a chartered surveyor by trade, so real estate. So I was working in the town. I never really took much notice, to be honest, of a massive port facility down in Leith, but subsequently ended up being offered a job at Forth Ports, and I've been here now for 17 years, worked across the business. At the end of the day, the ports are fundamentally a big real estate asset, big infrastructure asset, but they're a lot more than that, to be honest, in terms of what we do in terms of regeneration and green growth and keeping the country moving.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got that right. You say 17 years, so during that time, how has the port industry evolved over these years, and especially, dare I mention the dreaded word, but after the pandemic?
Yeah, I think the pandemic really drove a kind of renewed purpose and culture for us here, and the port industry was recognised worldwide for keeping the country moving during these extended lockdown periods and delivering essential goods and items to households, and we're really proud of that, and we came in every day and we delivered, and now it's not just the recovery we focus on, but we want to go much further and look at green growth and capture much bigger opportunities in the ports. I mean, we're big investors in infrastructure, and infrastructure is the backbone of any industrial cluster. So, communities want jobs, young people want hope. We've got the firepower to invest in big infrastructure that can deliver markets like offshore wind, which is a real future, a real opportunity for the green reindustrialisation of Scotland. The ports are a key to that.
Important for everybody. And yes, you've kept things alive, you kept jobs going and you kept everything moving. And of course, the economic value to the ports, but what it brings to the local and national economy. Can we touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, for every one job in the port, there's 7 in the supply chain out with the ports. The ports have always been key, economic drivers, and that's been recognised in terms of the work we do. We're in Port Leith today. There's been a port here since 1293, but this is actually the biggest regeneration in the port's history. So we're really positioning the ports for these new green markets, and it's quite sequential. Change doesn't come with one event, it's a process. So we build this big infrastructure, we capture all these offshore wind projects, we build supply chains around our ports, and that gives us the opportunity to take what is project activity and create into sustainable industry, where ultimately we're manufacturing and exporting our skills and capabilities. So really key regenerators, and we've got green freeport status here and in Tilbury, and that's essentially a catalyst for green growth, and it's about capturing the trade, the investment in the ports for the benefit of the communities in which we operate.
Yes, and you mentioned hope. I like that word, and you mentioned hope for the younger generations, and so beyond economic value, your port obviously contributes to community benefit and regeneration in Edinburgh, as you touched on there. Can you go into that way a bit? Or
Yeah, well, we're doing a range of things here in Leith. So it's green jobs is going to be a priority. We're actually building affordable housing in Leith as well. And in terms of delivering the energy transition, ports are going to be key. If we look across out the window at the Forth here, we're really well positioned for green growth. We're already a major fuel production and distribution hub for the Forth with the Forties pipeline, with the refinery, with Ineos and all our oil and gas terminals. We've got access to all the offshore projects in the North Sea, all the 200 years of carbon capture storage in the North Sea as well. And 70% of Scotland's population is an hour from us here. So we've got all these great assets, we've got downstream skills, and we're building the infrastructure to capture it. So absolutely, the ports will be key in terms of driving that green growth and capturing key projects that will move the country on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about initiatives and projects there, but is there one that you're most proud of that the port here is currently undertaking?
I would say that the offshore wind, I mean, as a group 5 years ago, we had no capability for marshalling massive projects. And these turbines are big. And I know you're a fan of Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh. So these turbines are about 40 metres higher than Arthur's Seat. They're massive. So to create a facility that, handles these massive components, it's a lot of concrete, which you get quite fond of in the port industry. And, delivering that at scale and pace, there was nothing 5 years ago, but now we have an exemplar design of a port in Dundee, handling projects. Leith has just been finished, fully enabled for the biggest offshore wind projects, and that completed this year. We've got other plans, long-term strategy in terms of floating wind as well. So getting infrastructure ready so that we can grab these projects is really key. And as I say, these projects are a catalyst to building wider supply chains and creating sustainable jobs.
Well, we've just had a coffee over at the port offices before we came over here. I'm going off piste a bit here. You're looking worried. But what I noticed was that there's a few awards on the table, and I've noticed they were for green initiatives. Can you, shake the tail feather, Rob? Come on, tell us a little bit about those awards that you've got on the table there.
Yeah, well, it's reflective of all the teams in Forth Ports. I mean, we're quite unique as we own and operate all our facilities, and we're actually statutory harbour authority for the river out there as well. So got great assets. We've also built up our own supply chain. So the icing on the cake for us was not just doing offshore wind projects, but it was creating a logistics arm of the group to employ the team to move the components about. We've acquired a towage company that supports that as well. So we offer this fully integrated approach to offshore wind, and it's quite unique to have that. And we've got a great team in terms of building infrastructure, in terms of running the infrastructure, constructing it, developing it, and then the service backup as well is really strong, and that's been recognised in the market. And we've solved the problem effectively because port capacity for these projects has been seen as a bit of a bottleneck. But we've bridged that gap. We've got 2 new marshalling facilities online, ready for the next tranche of Scottish wind projects.
Marvellous. So when you talk about these projects and you're talking about all this new infrastructure, I can imagine that the door is open for a lot of young talent, in which case, so for someone interested in a career in the port or maritime sector, what advice would you give? Because obviously you're out there looking.
Yeah, well, we've aggressively recruited apprenticeships and graduates, and are really keen to have young people in the business. It's a really diverse business. We're a port operator, but we're actually, as I say, we look after property, we look after security, there's marketing, there's engineering, there's procurement, there's IT, there's a whole raft of careers within the port. And that's essentially what it is. People either stay for a short term or a very long time and find a whole career, a very diverse career. In ports, in terms of the stats, I mean, they generally pay 40% more than the national average, 50% more productive, and we reskill 25% every 5 years. So you're well looked after, and it's an amazing place to work, very diverse. When I came down from working in the city, looking out of a window every day, at the city of Edinburgh, actually, you come down to the office here, one day there's a submarine, next day it's a warship or a cruise vessel, or it's such a diverse, exciting place. So it's forever changing as well, which is interesting.
Cruise, though, that's the one that we're going to head to next. And in the next breath, of course, my topic that I have here ahead of us is the industry trends and challenges. I mean, there are plenty of trends, there are plenty of challenges. So, you personally, how would you describe the current state of the cruise industry? Well, let's go global. Let's stand back and see how it's looking.
Yeah, the cruise industry is performing really strongly. I mean, people forget that, it only really recovered in terms of pre-pandemic levels last year. And it's not just survived, it's thrived, is my view. But, and well, in Scotland as well, 93% growth of cruise in the last 10 years. And we've had probably our best season ever in 2024. There's still some hangovers from the pandemic in terms of ship volume, I would say. And what I'm seeing is, you had 40 or so vessels sent to shipbreakers during the pandemic, and the rate of new builds slowed down. There's been posturing on new builds because there's no kind of benchmark for alternative fuels. So there is a kind of constraint tonnage in the market at the moment. And as the markets in the world come online, America's back 44%. China and Asia up 15%. The Baltics, they've had a really bad time. St. Petersburg effectively anchored itineraries. It was great visa, cheap fuel, great sailing time to Tallinn, and the rug was pulled on that. So some of that volume came back to kind of the other parts of the Western European region. But what I would say, they are exemplars in terms of destination development and what they've done. They've reinvented themselves. So, you've got volume going back to the Baltics and, I say, America and Asia. So it's getting a bit more competitive. So the next couple of years, we're seeing the figures maybe drop slightly. But on the positive front, I think there was 30 vessels announced at the end of last year in shipyards. Another 10 have come since, I think. So that's maybe 40 vessels that are going to come online from 2026 onwards. So we're really excited about the future of cruise.
I don't think any of us saw this really. I mean, perhaps I sound a bit like the prophet of doom here, but I've been in the industry a long time myself. And when that pandemic hit and everything seemed to be crumbling around us from all sides. And I was amazed in that comeback, quite how the passengers welcomed it all back. It really was amazing. You would have thought that they would have perhaps run for the hills. They did not. They ran for the gangway. It's been amazing, the comeback that this industry has seen. I totally agree with you there. And what about the UK-Scotland market? I mean, you mentioned that there's been a little bit of a dip. Isn't that just a sort of a question of everything sort of evening out?
I think, yeah, the market will consolidate and the market will always find its feet. I think when this new volume comes online, I think we see that growth trajectory continue. Scotland, we get a really good proportion of the UK's calls. So I think there's something like 123 vessels operate in the UK. We get about 104, I think. There are 54 operators. We see about 49 of them. So we're getting a real strong share of this.
And my guess is you've got your eye on those missing handful as well. But I mean, when you think of it, I mean, Edinburgh, Scotland is so well placed. I mean, you've got a good source market with the UK. That's the number one. But also you're a springboard. I mean, you can get right up to Northern Europe. You're a great springboard there for the expedition cruise lines and pre-post. For anybody who's wondering what a pre-post is, I mean, we'll say that the cruise vessel is going to be sailing on Tuesday. Essentially, your passengers could be coming in on Sunday, even Saturday, spending some time. And then when they exchange passengers, of course, the same applies with those coming off, that they can stay in the city and enjoy their time. And so the money, I think that's regenerated by this tourism and the fact that, as you say, this excellent springboard. And so I hope that you're successful in garnering the missing couple that you've got out there. Well, we talked about global deployment and geopolitical events a little bit. Again, it's yet to be seen, I guess. What's your view on that?
I'm really encouraged by the industry. I mean, you look at it's really come through a period of adversity, I would say. I remember reading something in the Financial Times that any industry that's seen as a car crash always takes the longest and is the hardest to recover. And that was completely true, actually, of cruise. And it was the tourism sector hardest hit. But, the passengers, like you say, they couldn't get on cruise lines quick enough. People wanting to try something else in terms of, cruise offers everything, very accessible to multi-generational cruising, fully wheelchair accessible, single travelers, family, couples. It's a really good type of holiday to go to. So cruise has seen a really strong resurgence. And I think it's onwards and upwards for cruise.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you on that. Yay, cruise fan here. Okay, let's put you back in the hot seat with regards to your responsibilities there as the chair of Cruise Scotland. Can you tell me a little bit about your role there? What's going on at Cruise Scotland?
Yeah, I've been the chair of Cruise Scotland for 2 terms now, and that's principally. I mean, it's a bit different from the other organisations because we have a strong membership, but demographics wise, we've not got hundreds of members. We have 20 plus members, so we're not paid. The management team's all volunteers that got an interest and passion for the business and the industry. So it's a bit of a different dynamic, but we're essentially Cruise Scotland was formed to take Scottish ports out to the sea trade shows, so Miami or Europe. And we're
Which is where we met.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Scots are renowned for being careful with their money, shall I say. So we ended up, for years, we took the stand out in about 20 suitcases, and we turned up 3 days early to build it ourselves. So we're really passionate about getting out there. And as time's evolved, we've got a bit more money, a bit more funding, which is always a challenge with small organisations. And, we've got a cracking stand. You'll often see the kilts going around.
I'm a fan of the kilt, and I must admit, the last few shows that I've attended, there's been a distinct lack of kilt. So please, would you take it as chair of Cruise Scotland? I demand that we revisit that point, please.
We're gonna bring back the kilt, and I've got a few ideas for that as well. Just no somersaults.
The Gammon tartan. We've talked about this.
It's always interesting walking up the freeway in a kilt.
Let's have a little chat about what your feelings are and what sets Scotland apart, in your opinion, as a cruise destination to other regions. Shake that tail feather, Rob. Come on.
I think it's diversity. We've got like the buzzing metropolis of Edinburgh and all the culture and the festivals, but you've also got the ruralness of the glassy lochs and the wild beaches and the romantic castles and the glens. And I think having that diversity is really good, and it's backed by a history, a heritage, a culture as well. I listened to a podcast quite recently, and they talked about passengers wanting emotional souvenirs. And it's back to that analogy. You don't always really remember what something, or the detail of it, but you remember how that thing made you feel. Mm-hmm. And I think that Scotland has that in abundance. It's got all the feelings. It's got, the eclectic scenery and captivating or inspiring landscapes, but it's got the buzz and the excitement of the cities, and it's got, inspiring culture as well, in terms of, the history and the wealth and the ancestry that goes behind that. And
I'm loving this. There's a real passion in there. You're really, they're picking up on the fact that you obviously really love this destination. You love your industry, and you're just happy to share that. And the fact that you've got all these cruise passengers that are tapping in on this, as you say, this emotional connection is it's just a bonus, isn't it? That's what makes the day worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think emotional experiences are something that, cruise lines are looking for. They're also luxuries about learning now as well, apparently. And, people want to learn about and come back with something, a connection or enrichment, from traveling. And, we work really hard in terms of developing these experiences that, give the behind the scenes view or a bit the authenticity of, of the destination. So people go away and, it's what resonates when they get home. That was just a really, they found peace or excitement, or it was quite thrilling, or, it was once in a lifetime experience.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the word authenticity. I think that's what any of us, whether we're traveling on a cruise ship or anywhere in travel, we're looking for that authenticity in a destination and in its people. And we talked about that previously, didn't we, about how just the local communities. How does Cruise Scotland then promote and support the cruise industry across the country?
Yeah, well, we do obviously the trade shows, and we work hard with the members to share best practice. What the pandemic's done is really brought the industry really close together. So like Cruise Scotland, we do a lot of lobbying with the Scottish Government, with the tourist organisations, with the destinations. I mean, cruise probably touches almost every council, local authority in Scotland. So we've got some key stakeholder management that we do. But, if there's legislation coming, we need to position for that and look after the industry. And, I'm quite precious the fact that, we've grown this and we want it to continue to grow, and I need to protect that. And we don't want anything that would discourage that in Scotland. So you just want a bit for it to be the best it can be.
Well, you're right. And we do. I'm from Iceland. Well, not originally. People have probably picked up on the Welsh accent, but I've been in Iceland for many years, 27 years, which is why the weather today doesn't bother me with a minus whatever it was. But we talked about taxes, and we've got all these things through the windscreen there that are ahead of us. And I think, like you say, the lobbying and the bringing forward of the information, that has to be done. And incidentally, I had an email this morning. Some of our colleagues know that we're having this conversation. So I'd sent out a few emails, and somebody came back to me, a cruise executive, and said one of the positives was the fact that you are proactive in all of this, that you are talking to local governments and, just trying to put the two sides together. Nobody's saying no. Of course, investment is needed, but it is a question of a balance and getting it right. And, well, as far as this person was concerned, you're very much on track. So there you go.
And I think, it's that saying, that if you, coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. And as I say, that pandemic's really brought us really close together. And I've not met anyone in the cruise industry that, isn't passionate or positive about making it more sustainable, integrating it into local destinations, and it's backed by a port industry that's a really strong industry. We have about 400 people in our operations at Capita Cruising, which we're probably second largest in the UK. So there's a wealth of jobs there, and it's driving economic benefit. That is not only just helping sustain supply chains, but it's also helping us invest in new generational changing projects like what as you see in Leith today.
Yeah, really. I think we're sometimes the sitting target in cruise, so we're not, you talk about 5% of visitors to Edinburgh or to Scotland.
Yeah, 0.5.
0.5, gosh. And yet, of course, when a cruise ship comes in, it's a big thing, isn't it? It's a big vessel. There's a lot of people on board, a lot of crew on board. It can be seen as being, oh gosh, look, here they come. And yet it's as you say.
Yeah, it's very visible. And I think
very visible.
Sometimes they're unfairly targeted. But, cruise is one of the most managed forms of tourism, and we know exactly when the vessel's arriving because it's usually planned 1 to 2 years in advance. We do little things in terms of getting the local bus company to put more capacity on the buses on the cruise day so local commuters aren't displaced. We make sure the buses aren't idling their engines in the car park. We've got a fantastic piper that welcomes all our cruise passengers with these amazing bagpipes, but perhaps not so amazing for people at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning in the flat opposite. So we maybe need to move where Louise performs, or we maybe do it in the afternoon. So it's just about working with that destination stewardship. Yeah, so I think it's a bit like, that analogy of sailing a ship from Ireland to New York. You don't just set one course, you continue altering it. And I think you just have to monitor the business and the activity. And, we've got all these really great levers in terms of what we do with our volunteers or our operational teams, and just make sure that we're, meeting the expectation of our customers and also the communities in which we operate.
That's an interesting thing you were talking about. What exactly is going on? It's very much behind the scenes. This is the thing, isn't it? And perhaps the general public doesn't realise exactly how much small planning and just this thought for local communities, as you're saying, about turn your bus engines off and the volunteers. I like that bit about the volunteers. I've been spying. I've been on Cruise Forth's website and having a little look in there, and I love this interaction and the fact that we were talking about this, weren't we, earlier? How some of these volunteers, how many have you got in total?
So it's upwards of 50 that we have, and they're all local residents. So what I love about it, it's almost like the exemplar in community engagement. We've got local residents inviting or welcoming cruise guests into the communities in which they live. So you hear these issues with, over tourism, or people don't want to see the cruise. And I would say one of the USPs about Edinburgh is it's a city that welcomes cruise liners and their passengers, and the volunteers do a fantastic job. But not only that, they look after the crew. They, if there's medical issues or they want to connect crew to family, they're there to assist on the day. And We have hospitality desks on board for guest orientation. We even can put a guest speaker on the port before to help, steer people in the right direction when they come ashore. So you almost can view these as events. If you were holding a 3,000 person event, a lot of planning goes into that, and it's just no different with ourselves. I've got to commend the teams here at Forth Ports, from everyone from the pilots to the towage, to the marine teams, to the operation teams, to the cruise team, and obviously destination development work. I mean, they do a great job of, like you say, what looks quite simple on the face of a ship coming in and leaving again. There's a lot of work that goes into making that
military precision,
that call
a
success.
Absolutely, and a lot of people involved in it. And I'm going to go circling back yet again and going back to Edinburgh here. And my topic on this one is the destination development and tourism. And Edinburgh is often seen as a marquee destination for cruise lines. What makes the city so special in this regard? A marquee destination.
I just think it's quite a magical city. You've got our majestic castle sitting on an extinct volcano, overlooking. There's more listed buildings in Edinburgh than anywhere in the UK, something like 4,500 listed buildings. That even walking around, the architecture is quite spectacular, and there's a lot of history and heritage behind that. But then you overlay that with great events, so you've got the Fringe Festival. I think it's like something like 55,000 performances. It's massive. And in the military tattoo, if you look at a cruise experience, you could get your sustainable tram from the port to the castle.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at the military performances. So you've got the tradition, you've got the talent, and you've got the setting and the backdrop at the castle. And fireworks, that is a really good example of a great shore excursion. But we also do, like food safaris. There's also...
please tell me that the deep-fried Mars bar's in on that.
Well, I can sort that out for you. And they do bounties and pizzas as well, I think. So.
Gosh.
But yeah, and then you've got the Lost Shore Surf Resort, which is like the biggest inland surf centre in Europe, which is in Edinburgh, where you can actually surf as well. And then you've got the Diageo whiskey experience, the Johnny Walker. You can go on a whiskey journey.
That was like going into the TARDIS. That was amazing. I can't believe it when we did that, when we visited you.
I almost think it's a bit like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. You come in the doors, you've got the actors on the conveyors, and they're telling you the story. And then where we are in Leith today, so this is like one of the world's first vertical distilleries. So if you want something authentic with a bit of history and look behind the scenes, it is exactly that. It's a distillery in a port that's handled whiskey over the years. These guys do a fantastic job of giving you the background. You can look out of the window of this distillery and you see the field where the actual barley's harvested to create the whiskey. So, and you can have exclusivity as well with the venue. So Edinburgh can deliver. I said that at the start about Scotland, and it's a diversity, and then on the other aspects, we do like sheepdog trials or meet the gamekeeper, or agri-tourism is a big thing in Scotland as well at the moment. So it's, although you've got the cities, it's quite rural as well. And, 90 minutes from a port, which is usually your standard, kind of shore ex or the max an hour and a half of a bus journey. So from Dundee Port, you could get up into Balmoral and see the Royal Teesside and the castle. Here in Edinburgh, you can still go into Perthshire and see, you can see a lot of rural Scotland.
And Arthur's Seat, how far have I got to go for Arthur's Seat?
2 miles.
Okay,
way.
so for the major hike, I could actually do the walk from the port to Arthur's Seat if I was pushing it.
I think we should do that, yeah. And now you could have your battered Mars bar at the end.
And I would walk 500 miles,
might
indeed.
Throw in an iron brew for you too.
Throw in more than that for me, mate. We've talked about destination development, and you've covered a lot of parts there. So obviously with destination development, you're going to get an influx of tourists. And so how do you maintain the cultural heritage and sustainability of Edinburgh? And how do you keep the essence of the city going?
Cruises manage tourism, and it's also responsible and sustainable tourism as well. And it's accessible. So it's all those strands kind of rolled into one. I mean, managing it is probably the key one. Having that point of contact on the quayside with the volunteers and Cruise Forth is essential in terms of, making sure that people can get orientated. They can go into the locality. They don't just need to go up to Edinburgh Castle. There's other options there. But the other strand of the Cruise Forth is the business to business development. So positioning local businesses to handle these passengers, because ultimately what what I love to see is if we package something up locally that they sell on board, the cruise line makes some money. That offsets their port costs or my costs. It brings economic value to the local area as well. The stat that I really like about the cruise is like 60% of people return back to the destination for a land-based holiday. So yeah, you do need to manage, do need to plan. But I feel as though, we're definitely a city that welcomes tourism. And as I say, it's not a huge percentage of total vessel traffic.
No, and potential then to sort of, encourage people to visit for longer. So they might take just a sample taste of Edinburgh and surrounds when they come in on a ship, but opportunities there to return either for the tattoo or...
Absolutely. It's a great destination that people come back time and time again.
So you're collaborating obviously with local businesses and communities and to maximise these benefits and sharing the love, as it were. So should we go on about industry challenges? Oh, nasty one. Brace yourself. But yeah, there are challenges in the industry. Sustainability is, of course, a hot topic, as it is across all industries. But how is the port and cruise industry in Scotland addressing environmental concerns?
I think it's being approached on all fronts. So, the lines are very committed to sustainability. I mean, people forget that they set themselves quite ambitious 2030 targets back in 2018. You've got a port industry here that's equally committed to net zero. Our own company here at Forth Ports want to decarbonise operations by 2032 and then net zero by 2042. And, our port members at Cruise Scotland are equally the same. The destinations, Edinburgh's got a sustainability plan as well. So I think it's a case of working together in terms of how we deliver that. And I don't think there's not one silver bullet. It's almost a concerted effort on a number of fronts. So if you go into the detail, it's simple things like making sure that if the ship separates its waste on board, then the separate skips here on the quayside. In terms of alternative fuels, the ports are really driving that innovation as well. We've got an amazing hydrogen project in Leith, for instance, where we're taking, water from the sewerage works, purifying it, electrolyzing it, making compressed hydrogen, and putting in hydrogen generators to power the shoreside load of our towage fleet. So, and that's not necessarily about making lots of hydrogen. It's actually about understanding these fuels and how you bunker them, store them, transport them, so that, because at the moment there is no industry benchmark for, alternative shipping fuels. There's quite a few that are emerging. So, but we're at the forefront of understanding what those are, but you need to start now. It's a bit like planting a tree. When's the best time to plant a tree 10 years ago? When's the next best time? It's now. So we're on the front foot looking at that. We've got a really good power supply in the port here. We looked after the Tallink ferry for families that were displaced from the Ukrainian conflict with Russia. And, one of the whole ethos there was looking after and giving that the best possible experience. So really good Wi-Fi, integrating with the community, transport, security. But one of the other aspects was short power to make sure the ship it was nice and quiet and it was, good for the environment while it was alongside. So, we've got the capability to do that. But fundamentally with any transition, it comes down to cost.
Yeah.
And we're a privately funded port. And I think with some of these investments, you need a business case. And I look at quite a lot of the power to X projects, even in Europe, and we had a European port in there visiting us a couple of days ago. And a lot of these fall away because the price of electricity. You look at cruise lines and some of the challenges, these cruise lines are essentially big power plants. They have diesel generators that make electricity for 40p a kilowatt. But we're looking at across a number of fronts how we deliver.
I think it's an industry. If we see how far, you're talking in terms of just literally what's happening in your own ports here. When we take into consideration that this is happening all over the world, with all the cruise ports that we know of, everybody is working together. We really are. We're a big industry. Of course, we're a big industry, but at the same point, we all know each other and everybody is aware of what is going on. And one of the things that we touched on, of course, we're talking about financially. How do you finance these projects? And tourism tax. Sorry, got to bring it in here. And the idea of a tourism tax, of course, has been discussed in many popular destinations. So what are your thoughts on the potential impact? There's pluses and minuses. Can I hear your thoughts on that?
The key thing for me is that we wouldn't want to stifle the growth. Scotland is, as many ports are, it's quite an expensive place to come. Adding a further charge could discourage those lines. from visiting. There will be a ceiling that they won't go beyond. And I guess uncertainty, well, confidence and certainty are two things that people want in business. So even having the debate isn't great without being certain or confident in what that outcome is going to be and what the detail is behind it, because it's very difficult to administer. Well, where I'm at the moment is really quantifying, what is the economic benefit of these ships at the moment? And it's something like £100,000 a call, on average, or £134 a passenger that goes in across the port to local destinations, that whole supply chain that supports that vessel. And I just wouldn't want the effect of a cruise tax discouraging those vessels from coming and losing out. So it would be a net loss in terms of the economic gain. So we're working really hard. And as I said before, we're working with Clear, Chamber of Shipping, British Ports Association, tourist organisations, and many other stakeholders, just to this positive advocacy for the business, to say, look, this is what it brings now. This is how it operates. And, we want the best for, as I say, the communities in which we operate. So how we just need to be very careful that we don't discourage or stifle an industry that's literally just recovered last year from probably, the worst setback it's ever had. The Scottish Government they've been really good at offering round tables up all around Scotland. So all the ports and the stakeholders have met with Scottish Government now, and then there'll be another around the consultation. So, but in the meantime, it's just quantifying the benefit that cruise brings. And, cruise is an interesting one. Scotland's quite a rural country, so it takes passengers to other parts of the country which it wouldn't normally go. It offers the ability to extend the season in other parts of the country.
We risk all of that.
Yeah. And I think it's important just to highlight, that the benefit it brings at this point. And as I say, it's a great 60% return of passengers back to destination in terms of sustainable tourism, which are, they're coming for land-based holidays. Quite an interesting one.
Bring in a little bit, inside info, as it were, from up north, from Iceland. That this tax is obviously being discussed, and we're at the stage now where it's supposed to be started to be implemented as of January the 1st, but still no yes or no firm answer. So the level of uncertainty, and already cruise lines are cancelling their calls for next year. So there's a lot to be lost. There really are, especially the fact that the cruise lines are coming into the smaller communities up in Iceland, for example, so the smaller ports that rely heavily on this, and yet because of the uncertainty, they're pulling the calls. So I do hope you find a way forward to sort this out. I mean, we know that things are changing. We know that they need investment. It's a question of how and how much and which path we take. So keep looking at Iceland. I can tell you it's all happening up there. Yeah, the impact can be quite dramatic.
I think in periods of conflict like this, sitting down with, a full picture of the data with the right people in the room, and just having the ability to discuss and having a seat at the table is really important. And we've got that. So I think quite a good position at the moment.
Well, talking of which, we're going to be having discussions tomorrow. There's an industry conference coming up tomorrow. So let's have a little chat about your industry conference and the insights. Can you share a bit about what we can expect tomorrow?
Yeah, so this is quite a recent thing. I say recent within the last 5 years. So Cruise Forth, our destination development arm, Peter Wilson's done an amazing job of stitching this conference together. And it's basically...
He's my new crush, by the way. He's awesome.
It's about bringing, all of Scotland together and what's good for cruise. So, and it's about learning as well. We've got someone from the Baltic ports as well. I've said they did a really good job in terms of reinventing themselves. Is there any learnings that we can take from that as well? We've got one really good from Iceland speaking as well, I think.
I wonder who that could be.
Which will be interesting as well. And looking at that expedition market, which Scotland's so well suited of. So it's back to this managed tourism. How can we prepare better for next season? So really exciting. We've got representatives from Cruise Europe as well coming. So a good diverse spectrum from Scotland to what the European cruise destinations are doing, and then some real feedback from on the ground to give us that best practice.
So how important do you think these industry conferences for networking and shaping the future of cruise and port sectors?
Really important, because it's a relationship industry. You have a look at, in terms of working on other commodities in the port, Cruise is quite unique. There's not many middlemen. As you basically know exactly who the deployment teams are, who's managing the marine, who's managing the shore excursions.
It's amazing, actually, isn't it?
So it's very B2B. So having that interaction is key, and sharing information. The data is always interesting, but people buy from people, and having that contact and that network is key.
So what are you hoping that the key takeaways or goals that you're hoping to achieve from tomorrow's conference?
I think it's basically making sure that we are being the best we can be, taking the learnings from on the ground. How can we improve? Looking over the fence, so to speak. And I think taking that and then you're making sure we position and plan the business. I mean, there's a few headwinds you mentioned in terms of cruise tax and sustainability. So we need to be on the front foot.
And regeneration. I love those words, regenerative tourism. We're especially in the expedition sector. I've worked in this for a long time, and the days when we used to get these old Russian vessels, modified slightly, that used to turn up with just one or two guides, they didn't need any services. Those days are gone. I mean, they still are very sort of self-sufficient, if you like, but the fact that we really need to encourage more regeneration of tourism, don't just come in and wander around and go, bring something back.
Well, it's really big, and is what I was saying at the start of the podcast. It's about the sustainable growth.
Yeah.
And, we want to capture the benefit of our activities and operations and trade and investment in the ports for the benefit of the coastal communities in which we operate.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good day, I'm as I say. But Rob, before we close, I understand you have a colleague joining us today who represents the next generation of talent in the cruise industry. Can you tell us a little bit about Alistair and why you wanted him to be a part of this episode?
Yeah, so I've worked with Alistair now for a number of years on offshore wind and some of the energy transition. He's done great things in terms of building relationships in the industry. And as I say, Forth Ports have, over the last 5 years ago, had no presence in offshore wind. But Alistair's been part of the team that's really positioned that well in terms of relationships. And as we said, cruise is a relationship business. So I think this would be really well suited to him, and he's got some great ideas around how we use data and how we move the business on as well. So it's a great opportunity. Like I say, young people, they want hope, but they also want growth, and I think giving young people the opportunity in the business to try something new is something that we can encourage, and he's got the backing of the full port behind him.
I did have a little spy on LinkedIn, and I can see his background. So Rob, should we take Alistair and let him join us here on the table?
Here we go.
Left and right, here we go. Well, welcome, Alistair. It's great to have you here as someone who's about to dive into cruise tourism.
Yeah.
So welcome to the party, so to speak.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good luck.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, okay, I've got a few questions for you. You all right being in the hot seat there? Why don't you introduce
Absolutely.
yourself? Just introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself a bit.
Yeah, well, I'm Alistair Johnson. I'll take you back a bit. I was born in Kirkcaldy, grew up in Clackmannanshire in a wee town called Dollar, where I went to school and then ended up at the University of Edinburgh studying a master's in chemical engineering. I then graduated in 2020, right into the heart of COVID. So finding a job was quite difficult. Actually, a lot of my peers around me were actually losing their placements. So just a short time after that, I ended up landing a job as a graduate, an energy graduate at Forth Ports. So I often see myself as very lucky at getting that opportunity. And from there, I've had the ability to gain insights into a huge amount of how supply chain works, how ports work. It was never an industry I ended up thinking I'd be in. I always saw myself doing something else, but I'm so glad I landed in it because it's given me so much opportunity and ability to expand into to different things. In the last 4 years, I've been really concentrating on the renewables sector and building up a good client base and figuring out how we position ourselves well for that. I've used a lot of different data insights to do that, to make sure we really understand the market and how we position ourselves for it. And then linking into cruise and bringing in the diversity, which is a port, and all the different things we do. I've also had the ability to look into the cruise market. And as we recovered from COVID, I was actually involved in doing a lot of the data insights to measure cruises across Scotland, not just into the port of Leith, and doing the metrics on how we're actually recovering out of this. Rob, my boss as well, he's given me a huge amount of guidance on that. Obviously didn't come in and realizing I was doing all that. I sort of figured it out as I went along, and he gave me a lot of
So
guidance.
suffice to say, you know your way around an Excel sheet.
Yeah,
You like your data.
yeah. Well, I'm an engineer at heart, and I like the technical side of things. But at Forth Ports, I've really got to get my teeth into the business development and commercial world. I also see myself as quite entrepreneurial, so I prefer the commercial side and making friends with people and getting the opportunity to chat. But the engineer at heart, I do like to solve problems. I like the data side. Exactly, yeah. There's lots of problems to solve, but I like the data side, and I like using data insights to then talk to customers about. They really understand.
Face-to-face chat.
Yeah.
Have you done a season with the cruise industry yet? Or will 2025 be your first cruise season?
This will be my big leap into the cruise industry. I don't see it as such a big leap because like I said, I've had the opportunity to deep dive into it and have data insights and produce a lot of the cruise Power BI stuff. I created the sort of foundations for that now, and Brendan and the BI team's taken that over. But I've got a rough knowledge of it, and I'm looking forward to learn more and building that client base, which is the more BD commercial work around it.
It's a very personalised industry, isn't it? It's the cruise side of life, as Rob was, and you're yet to perhaps discover that we're probably this. How many people? There's not that many, really. If we were to have a big party here in this building now, everybody who is influential in the cruise industry could quite easily fill this room. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's so connection is going to be probably your big step into the foray, as I would say.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking forward to? Come on, tell me about it. What are you looking forward to getting more involved in?
Well, I think it links into the beauty, which is a port and the activity within it. You look out the window here, we're positioned in the Port of Leith distillery. You've got a aggregate pile over there, you've got a salt pile there. It's a real industry, and one that you can go out and walk about, you can feel, you can see it, it's real. And the cruise industry is no different. I look out my window, I see a cruise ship, I'm right on the cruise berth, I see the Royal Yacht Britannia. There's off luxury yachts that come in and sit next to the Britannia. There's massive cruise ships that sit out at anchorages, and I've been lucky enough to go on them as well. So
that's usually the sign.
Yeah.
Once you've stepped on board a cruise ship, then it's you either love it or you hate it. If you'd legged it down that gangway and said, no, it's not for me. But that was, if I speak personally, that when as soon as I stepped on board a cruise ship to count the tickets, you see the shore excursion managers down there taking the tickets and getting on board. It is very, very addictive. So Good luck with that.
Yeah, I've not thought of it like that. I suppose that the first time I actually stepped onto a cruise ship, having worked in a port for 4 years, was just the other month.
Did they give you breakfast, though? This is always the question, is it not? We're usually invited to breakfast when we go on board. If they didn't, heads will roll.
It was lunch and it was good. I had a couple and dessert, so it was good.
They looked after you. That's good.
They did.
Yeah. Oh well, that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing you at a few of the trade shows. But are there any sort of specific projects or areas within cruise? I mean, you like your data, obviously, with that. But is there anything that you're particularly excited about getting your teeth into, apart from the buffet on board?
Yeah, well, the buffet is definitely something I look forward to. I'll need to make sure I gym a bit harder if I'm going out and getting all the buffets on the ship. Might need to take up more running as well. But I really like understanding the market first. As I said, I've had the opportunity to get small data insights into the Scottish market, particularly our own market here at Forth Ports. I'd quite like to take a wider span on that. I will be going out as a worldwide market. I'd like to get an understanding of the exact positioning here in Scotland. Rob will be a massive help for that. I mean, he's got some of the best knowledge out of anyone about the Scottish and UK and worldwide cruise market. So I've got the best teacher. I
taught him well.
Yeah, there you go then. I've got the best teacher in front of me, so that'll be really helpful. Two of the best teachers in front of me, to give me the right guidance into the area or anywhere I'm looking wrong. And then there's also the sustainability aspect around cruise ships and the innovative side of things. So Rob spoke earlier about the Talent Victoria and how we were able to decarbonize that operation by putting shoreside power. Can we do more in that area? that's something I'd like to speak to our customers about and really find out what their pain points are with ports, with our ports. See if there's anything we can do to help them transfer. I think that's key to sustainability and key to growth.
So if we were to have this conversation again in a year's time, where you and I are going to be sitting here, so what do you hope to learn or achieve in your first year working with the cruise industry? So how do you see 2025 going for Alistair Johnson? Come on, tell us.
It's a really hard question. Again, linking back, I've never really known what I wanted to do. So having an outlook on what I want to achieve is really difficult. I suppose what I want is to meet the customers, make new friends in the industry. Again, that's part of the perks of this job is I get to go out and speak to people as a job and make friends with them. That's absolutely brilliant. And with the cruise industry, there's an added bonus of I get to sell Edinburgh, which is the city I've lived in for the last 10 years. So hopefully it should be bread and butter for me. I mean, I absolutely love the city. I love the culture. I love the history. I live just at the base of the castle, so I get to look at the Castle Rock and the historic volcano it sits on, and then travel down to the port of Leith, which dates back to the 12th century. So it's selling something that I've lived in for the last 10 years and taken in. I don't want to move away from it. And I want to hopefully transfer that same love for Edinburgh and Scotland to the people I'm speaking
And
with.
still be in the maritime sector. So
Exactly.
It's going to have to work, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
I'm going to turn over to Rob just a sec. Now, Rob, what advice would you give to young professionals like Alistair who are just starting out in the industry, but put your mentor hat on now?
Well, it is, like we said, it's a relationship industry. So, but you're really good at that. You've proven yourself in all these other markets. So I think just be yourself, be the best version of yourself. You've got a really good outlook on selling the city and all it has to offer. It's interesting. We work in the port industry, but the port industry is worldwide, and you get some great connections in UK ports, Scottish ports, European ports, and we're all pursuing the same net zero games and sustainability initiatives and all the other aspects of the work. It's a great industry, and I think you get to...
It's a people industry.
It's a people industry, and you'll excel at that, and we're 100% behind you.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I'm most looking forward to is it's more interaction with the people and getting involved with them.
But it's also chronic help syndrome as well. That helps if you've got that in the cruise industry, believe me. A lot of problem solving, a lot of on the spot things like that we have to face with. But Alistair, really, it's fantastic to see young talent stepping into such an exciting industry. And we're welcoming you here and now, and we wish you all the best on this new journey. I think that's a wrap up from us here. And I'm going to say thank you to Rob Mason, Senior Business Development and Strategy Manager at Forth Ports and Chair at Cruise Scotland, and Alistair Johnson, wishing you, of course, all the best there. And thank you all for joining us on the first ForthCast.
Thanks, Liz.
Looking forward to seeing you all, hearing you all again soon. Bye now. Thanks.
Cheers.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Liz.
Cheers.